Imagine taking one of history's most sacred creation myths, a story of gods churning the cosmic ocean to create the nectar of immortality, but replacing the gods with politicians
Right.
and replacing the cosmic serpent with, like, a human umbilical cord. Today, we are looking at a text that does exactly that. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, so you, the listener, actually brought an incredibly challenging piece of literature to our table. It's a Sinhala poem titled Have You Still Not Felt Love by Wirathanga W. Nimmo.
It's a heavy read.
It really is. The mission today is to figure out how this poet maps out the mechanics of human greed. Specifically, how that greed transforms a world of living, breathing beings into just a landscape of dead machinery.
Yeah, and the way Nemo constructs this argument is it's almost architectural. We are diving into a text that doesn't just, lament the darkness of global
Yeah.
conflict. It actually attempts to dissect it.
Oh, like breaking down a machine to see how it works.
Exactly.
Mhm.
The poet operates on the premise that you can't cure a disease until you isolate the pathogen. And the pathogen he isolates here is a very specific kind of systemic, calculated resource hoarding,
Right.
one that has effectively overridden our basic biological empathy. And just to set the stage for you listening, our goal here isn't to point fingers at specific modern nations or take political sides.
Definitely not.
Right. We're here to objectively analyze the powerful, honestly disturbing imagery the poet uses to diagnose this universal condition of global division.
So we have to start with how he sets the baseline for this condition. In the opening lines, he doesn't give us a picture of, like, chaotic, passionate warfare.
No, not at all.
He describes a world locked in a cold fire fight. That phrase, cold fire, is such a deliberate oxymoron. Fire is supposed to consume fiercely, right? It provides heat and light.
A bit less illuminating.
Yeah. But a cold fire implies something entirely bureaucratic. It's a fire that burns and destroys without providing any actual illumination.
It perfectly captures the essence of modern geopolitical struggle. I mean, it's the covert operations, the economic strangulation, the proxy
It's the
skirmishes.
stuff that happens behind closed doors.
Exactly. The poet explicitly notes that thousands of secret, deceitful deeds are executed just for the sake of victory. And the result is countless fallen souls who simply vanish from the historical record.
Wow.
It is a shadow war, fought in the margins, completely away from the public eye.
Which brings us to the root of this shadow war. The poem shifts to this fascinating historical metaphor. The poet references a, quote, meeting in the past.
Yeah.
He suggests that at some unspecified point, the leaders of the world gathered and established a grim new rule for
A
civilization.
total paradigm shift.
Right. He says that true kingship, like the ultimate crown, goes only to the one who possesses what he calls black gold.
And that concept of black gold is the engine driving the entire poem.
So instead of viewing history as this grand clash of noble ideologies, the poet is framing global history like a rigged, smoky backroom poker game where the only chips that matter are barrels of oil.
Well, on a literal level, it is universally understood as oil.
Yeah.
But in the broader literary context Nimmo is building, it represents extracted wealth in all its forms.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it's the raw material of global power. The poet argues that during this metaphorical meeting, the metric for leadership shifted permanently. It was no longer about wisdom or, divine right or the welfare of the people.
It just became entirely synonymous with resource extraction.
Exactly.
Wait, I'm kind of stuck on this black gold metaphor because we immediately jump to oil due to the modern connotations, right?
Sure.
But if this is strictly about the oil industry, why does he drag the Amazon River into the imagery later on? Is this actually about a broader, older, kind of colonial extraction?
That is a crucial distinction to make.
Because it feels like a continuous, centuries-old mandate to strip mine the planet, regardless of what the specific resource is. By calling the prize Black Tears later in the poem, is the poet saying that the wealth itself is made of human suffering, or just that suffering is the byproduct of extracting it?
Both, actually. Limiting it to just petroleum misses the scope of the poet's critique. Black gold is a stand-in for any earthly resource that is commodified at the expense of life.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the text proves this through a linguistic shift. Like you said, the leaders established the rule of black gold, but later in the poem, the prize they're fighting for is suddenly referred to as black tears.
Right, Black Tears.
The alchemy here is profound. At first, the leaders see the resource as gold valuable, inanimate, purely economic. But by redefining it as black tears, the poet reveals the true, inseparable cost.
You cannot extract the gold without extracting the tears.
Precisely. The wealth is mechanically fused with the suffering it causes. The Earth's physical resources and human sorrow become the exact same liquid. The process of pulling wealth from the ground is, simultaneously, the process of pulling grief from the population.
But extracting these black tears requires a massive physical footprint. I mean, you can't drill for wealth without tearing up the earth, which brings us to the collateral damage.
Environmental toll.
Yeah. This relentless pursuit doesn't stay confined to that metaphorical boardroom where the leaders had their meeting. It spills out into the physical world. And the geographical imagery he uses to describe this spillover is just visceral.
It really is.
He talks about fire being dragged into the sea between two countries.
It's the disruption of boundaries. The ocean, which should be this neutral, connecting body of water, becomes a conduit for this cold fire.
And then comes the line we touched on a second ago. He says, the tears freeze in the Amazon River.
Yeah.
Let's look at the mechanics of that image for a second. The Amazon is the planet's circulatory system, right? It's a massive generator of life and biodiversity.
Right.
By having the tears of war freeze there, he isn't just saying nature is sad, he is describing a physiological shutdown.
It's a global fever response.
Exactly. The sorrow of this resource war is so profound that it paralyzes the very lifeblood of the planet.
It alters the Earth on a biological level. And once the poet establishes this global environmental paralysis, he zooms in tight on the localized atrocity of modern warfare.
The shift in scale is jarring.
Very. The descriptions transition from a planetary scale to a horrifyingly human scale.
Yeah.
He describes an environment where innocent dreams are shattered by the thousands.
Oh, man.
And bullets fly so thickly that it becomes a physical impossibility to breathe. He calls it a rain of death.
Rain of death perverts the fundamental purpose of rain. Like, rain is supposed to descend from the sky to bring life, to nourish crops, to sustain the water cycle.
Right, it's life-giving.
Here, the sky is dropping metal to suffocate the life below, and the machinery delivering this rain is where the imagery gets deeply unsettling. He doesn't just call them fighter jets or submarines.
No, he assigns them these chilling, mythological characteristics.
Yeah, he describes blood-drinking vampires falling from the sky.
By using the vampire metaphor for aerial bombers, he isolates the parasitic nature of the machinery. I mean, vampires are undead, right? They have no life of their own.
They just feed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A war machine is dead metal. It only animates, it only fulfills its purpose by feeding on the blood of the living.
It's terrifying. And he does the exact same thing for naval warfare. He writes, quote, "The Nautilus from the Naga world is drawn out." For anyone listening who might not be familiar with the specific mythology, the Naga world refers to the underworld. It's the subterranean realm of serpent deities in Hindu and Buddhist traditions.
I do.
So a submarine isn't just an advanced piece of Navy technology navigating the ocean. It is an apex predator, a monster summoned directly from the abyss to hunt us.
Think about the implication of that, though. The poet is holding up a mirror to human intellect.
Oh, so...
Well, all of our brilliant engineering, our mastery of physics, our ability to conquer the skies and the deep seas, our highest cognitive achievements have been dedicated to constructing mythological monsters whose sole purpose is to consume us.
Oh, wow. We have mechanized our own predators.
Yeah, exactly.
That machinery is so massive, so imposing, which makes the very next image he uses feel like a physical blow. Right after giving us vampires in the sky and leviathans in the sea, the poet points to the casualty of this war.
The contrast here is heartbreaking.
It really is. He writes about birds' eggs falling to the wind. I want you to just imagine that sheer scale difference there.
It's almost hard to picture.
Right. Multi-billion-dollar, bloodthirsty war machines tearing apart the atmosphere, and the consequence the poet forces us to look at is something as small, delicate, and defenseless as an unhatched bird's egg being blown out of a nest.
The cruelty lies in the absolute indifference of the machine. I mean, the bombers and the submarines aren't targeting the egg. They don't even register its existence.
It's just collateral damage.
Purely. The destruction is so blind and absolute that the tiniest, most fragile seeds of future life are just casually swept away in the atmospheric displacement of the explosions.
It's devastating.
The egg represents unfulfilled potential. It is the future that will never hatch, destroyed by an engine of war that doesn't even know it's there.
Which begs the question the poet literally asks immediately after, Why does this heartless sorrow rise?
Right.
How do we make sense of a machine that operates with such blind, colossal indifference to life? To answer that, Nimel realizes he can't just use modern metaphors anymore.
They aren't big enough.
No. The scale of the uncreation happening is too vast. He has to go back to the foundational myths of creation itself to explain the magnitude of the greed.
So he turns to the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the milk ocean.
Yes.
This is a monumental myth in South Asian traditions. To understand how violently Nimel subverts this, we have to look at how the original myth works mechanically.
Walk us through it.
So, in the classic story, the gods, the suras, and the demons, the asuras, are forced into a truce. Cosmic balance requires both light and dark. They sit on opposite sides of the cosmic milk ocean. They use a massive mountain, Mount Mandora, as the central churning rod. And they use the giant serpent king, Vasuki, wrapping him around the mountain to act as the rope.
They pull back and forth, using that massive friction to churn the ocean and release the Amrita, the nectar of immortality. It's a story of ultimate cooperation to sustain eternal life. But Nimal takes this sacred architecture and just hollows it out.
He replaces the soul of the myth with commerce. In the poem, the factions aren't churning for the nectar of immortality. The poet explicitly states they are churning purely to find wealth. The pursuit of spiritual eternity, the highest possible cosmic goal, has been entirely overwritten by the pursuit of material extraction. The gods and demons have become global superpowers fighting a proxy war over resources.
But the shift in the goal isn't even the most shocking part. It's the tools they use to achieve it.
Yeah, this is where it gets incredibly dark.
Nimel swaps out the imagery of the mountain and the serpent, and the replacements he chooses are deeply disturbing. Instead of placing Mount Mandora in the cosmic ocean, the poet says, they are throwing my mother into the milk ocean.
Right.
And instead of using a giant mythical serpent as the rope to churn the water, he says, the umbilical cord is being pulled. Wait, by replacing the serpent with an umbilical cord, the poet is saying our endless extraction of wealth is literally severing our connection to life itself, isn't he?
That's exactly it.
We are strip mining our own mother. Let's look at the mechanics of an umbilical cord. It is designed to be a one-way channel of silent, selfless nourishment from a mother to a child.
Yes.
By using it as a tug-of-war rope, they are applying violent, two-way friction to the most delicate, life-sustaining vessel in mammalian biology.
It is the absolute emotional and thematic climax of the text. To use an umbilical cord as the rope in a violent struggle for wealth is an act of supreme self-destruction.
Yeah.
The warring factions are so blinded by the prospect of black gold that they're willing to snap the very cord that tethers them to existence.
It's like running a car engine by melting down its own parts.
That's a great way to put it.
It keeps you moving forward for a little while, but
Yeah.
you are structurally guaranteeing your own catastrophic failure. We are cannibalizing the very origin of our life just to extract a few more drops of wealth.
And the mother in this context is Mother Earth, but it's also humanity itself.
Right.
The combatants are so intensely focused on winning the tug-of-war, on pulling their side of the cord harder than the enemy, that they completely ignore the biological reality that they're tearing apart their own life support system.
The machinery of greed has entirely overridden the instinct for self-preservation.
Completely.
And once he pushes us to that terrifying cosmic climax, once we see humanity actively ripping its own umbilical cord apart, the poet does something brilliant. He drops the grand mythology entirely.
He just cuts it all away.
The narrative snaps back from the cosmic ocean directly into a stark, intimate confrontation with the architects of this war.
He strips away all the layers we've discussed. He takes away the black gold. He removes the vampires falling from the sky. He banishes the gods and demons.
Just leaves the raw truth.
Exactly. He forces the reader and the warmongers to look at what is underneath all that geopolitical architecture.
Basic human biology. He asks two piercing questions at the end of the poem. Were you the only ones born in this world? Are you the only ones who feel hunger?
By asking about birth and hunger, he dismantles the entire illusion of superiority that drives the cold firefight.
It's brilliant.
Every single person operating those war machines, every politician sitting in that historical boardroom negotiating for black tears, was born through the exact same biological process.
They were all attached to an umbilical cord.
They all have a stomach that will eventually signal that it is empty.
Hunger is the body consuming itself if it isn't fed,
Yeah.
right? It is the ultimate physiological vulnerability. And by centering the end of the poem on hunger, Nimel highlights the profound absurdity of the conflict. The pilot operating the blood-drinking vampire jet is powered by the exact same fragile heartbeat, the exact same cellular need for calories as the person shivering on the ground below the bombs.
The poet uses our shared biology as the ultimate equalizer.
I love that. The ultimate equalizer.
The idea that one group's hunger for wealth somehow supersedes another group's biological right to simply exist and eat is exposed as a lethal arrogance.
Yeah.
The other man's breath beats just like yours. It is a desperate attempt to reignite empathy in a system that has systematically engineered its empathy away.
Which brings us back to the title of the poem itself. Have you still not felt love? Look at the journey this text has dragged us through.
It's quite a ride.
We started in a shadowy boardroom where human life was permanently devalued in favor of resource hoarding. We watched that decision physically mutate the earth, freezing the Amazon and turning the sky into a canopy of mechanical predators.
Right.
We witnessed humanity willing to rip apart its own umbilical cord in a blind frenzy for wealth.
And through all of that layered destruction, the poet leaves the door open. The very act of asking, "Have you still not felt love?" implies that love remains a functional alternative.
It's still an option.
It is an option sitting right on the table, totally ignored, while we busy ourselves feeding the cold fire.
The poem isn't just a lament, it's an ultimatum. When will humanity finally choose to bind itself with the recognition of our shared fragility, instead of tearing itself apart for power?
That's the core of it.
It's an intense, uncompromising text, and it completely rewires how you look at the supposedly neat, managed order of global politics.
It forces you to look past the geopolitical strategy and see the actual biological cost. And, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to turn over in your mind long after this deep dive ends. We've seen how the poet maps out this violent churning of the ocean for black gold, and the willingness of leaders to use the umbilical cord of humanity to win the tug of war. But what happens in the exact moment that cord finally snaps?
Oh, wow.
If the engine of war succeeds in completely consuming the very life force that sustains it, what is actually left for the victors to inherit? When the world they have finally conquered is entirely devoid of love and wiped clean of life, what exactly did they win?